Okay, Deborah, I think we're ready to kick off.
All right, I'll start things off. Hi, I'm Derek Gunderson at the Center on Law, Business, and Economics at Northwestern Pritzker School of Law, where the Northwestern Workforce Science Project is housed. And we want to welcome you all here today. It's great to see you for our second People Analytics Virtual Career Meetup. I will now turn things over to Director of the Workforce Science Project, Deborah Weiss. Deborah?
Thanks, Derek. I'm Deborah Weiss. We're delighted to see you all here at the second career meetup of TALREOS. I'd like to encourage people, we're not going to be interacting with the panelists during this session, but if you want to use the chat, we encourage that. And please feel free to put your LinkedIn profiles in there. And if you want to connect with each other and chat that way. And we've got a fabulous panel today. I'd like to welcome our moderator, Richard Rossenow. Richard?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and good evening to those of you abroad, and good morning to, I'm sure, some of you too. Thank you all for coming in today. So my name is Richard Rossenow. I'm the Vice President of People Analytics Strategy at One Model, and I've been in the people analytics space as a practitioner for about a decade, and as such, I'm thrilled to see this group come together. This meetup is just spectacular. The fact that we have the density and the interest and the excitement to celebrate careers of people analytics is just a dream come true. So thank you all for coming here today, and thank you, Northwestern, for hosting us. I am also thrilled to be here as the moderator for the call today. The guests we have are incredible. Greg and Amit, we have a full agenda, and we'll be diving right in. But if you have questions, please, again, put them in the chat. We'll make sure we document them. If we don't get to them in the session, we'll get back to you afterwards. But thank you all for being here today. So I'd love to kick things off. Amit, if you could be our first guest to jump in, if you could please introduce yourself and let the audience know how you got involved in the field.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Amit Prashant. I'm the Associate Vice President of Information and Analytics at Northwestern. My background is kind of unique. I'm an engineer by training, mechanical engineering. I've worked in manufacturing facilities and from the automotive to printing and then into the hospital world. And I found myself always using problem-solving methods to address issues and look for opportunities for improvement. And when I shifted to the higher ed space, that same theme followed me or led me, whichever way you want to look at it. And I spent time in into the business school and then into the central administration, where I lead the Office of Institutional Research. So I think I define the field of people analytics maybe a little bit differently than most of you, where I'm working across faculty, staff, and students. So it's not just our staff that we're interested in understanding movement, growth, satisfaction, engagement. We're working with the unique elements of students, both undergrads and graduates, and professional students as well, and then faculty who could be non-tenure line and tenured, across a broad range of schools and disciplines. So it's exciting to try to understand what makes people tick and how you can align what makes people tick with what's right for the organization. I think that's one of the main objectives in trying to help use data to help unpack that and help solve some of the problems or opportunities, identify the opportunities that and unlock the potential in people and in the organization with its people.
That's awesome. Amit, thank you for joining us. I think the role you're in is spectacular, the expansion of this, and seeing these types of roles pop up in university settings too, that's something we're seeing more and more lately. So to see Northwestern investing here is just tremendous too. So thank you for joining. Greg, I'd like to pose the same question your way. Could you please introduce yourself and let us know how you got involved in the field? Oh, Greg, I can't hear you. I don't know if anyone else is.
That's my fault. I had my headset on mute. I have two mutes I have to work with. So my name is Greg. I started in the people analytics field. Actually, my transition into it came from probably an unlikely place. My career started in for-profit education, right? So proprietary education, if you've heard of these colleges, big deal back in the early 2000s. But interesting thing about that industry is there's just a really heavy emphasis, obviously, on outcomes and measuring learning and whether or not people learned and whether or not that learning can get them jobs, right? So there's no qualms about whether or not you can measure the effectiveness of education, at least in that realm. It's expected, it's regulated. So when I left that industry, I found an interesting transition into corporate America in learning analytics and measuring learning effectiveness, right? There tended to be a culture in many, at least in the corporation that I started in, where people didn't know where to start measuring actual outcomes of learning, right? And some people didn't think it was possible, but I knew it was possible, or at least possible to try. And so I was able to take what I learned from the proprietary education sector and transfer that into, and this was at Allstate Insurance, into measuring the effectiveness of their training programs for agencies, agency owners, and claims employees. From there, as you can imagine, working in learning data and measurement, I'm often interfacing with HR data, interfacing with the people analytics teams, and oftentimes our projects overlapped, and that's where I just kind of found a love for people analytics more so than specifically learning. And I found myself doing some pet projects with them, and eventually moved my way in my career through up to leading people analytics teams. And since then, I've become a little more specialized in talent acquisition analytics specifically, but generally speaking, people analytics is my passion.
That's awesome. Greg, I love the education tie. I'd like to say we planned that, but we've got a really good theme going already with Amit and Greg, kind of from this education and measurement and pulling that together. So Greg, why don't we stick with you for the next one? Could you tell us a little bit about your organization and your role within that team?
Sure. So I work for General Motors, and I am situated on the people analytics team. I actually started with this team about a month and a half ago, and I'm a people analytics manager focused specifically on talent acquisition analytics. So my clients are talent acquisition leadership, obviously CHRO, and then some other clients are HRBPs and business leaders, et cetera. So as the people analytics manager, and since this is a new role and a new team at GM, fairly new, I can go into that a little bit later, but the team is expanding. So I'm hiring 3 folks on my team, and we'll go into the details of those, but those 3 folks are going to help support the development of solutions, products, insights, and consulting with talent acquisition leaders.
That's great to hear. Yeah, it's been exciting seeing the GM organization come together and the investment that's been made there. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. But let's bring it back to Ami. It'd be great to hear a little bit more about your organization and how you fit into the team there and the role you play.
Yeah, so at Northwestern University, we're based in Evanston. We have campuses in Chicago as well as in Qatar in the Middle East. Our education portfolio is quite broad, from music to engineering and medicine to law, and a lot of things in between. So it's very exciting and broad. And with that breadth comes kind of a challenge of how do you bring everything together as an organization. And when you talk about people, the different types of roles that exist across the organization, from individuals who work with animal care in our medical school to individuals that focus on instrument management in the music school. So HR understanding of the different needs in such a broad university is something that's exciting. My role in the institution is kind of a hub for understanding a broad range of elements of how the university is doing. So it could range from student success and the impact that students are feeling based off of COVID, for example. We did a lot of work in partnership with our schools to understand what was the impact on learning and in well-being connected with COVID and the remote learning experience, and then the hybrid model and so forth. So it can range from student success to identifying faculty to nominate for honorific awards. So looking at patterns of publication and patterns of recognition to identify potential nominees for larger profile, higher profile awards. We also work with the schools on many ad hoc sorts of projects that might mean optimization of certain decision-making requirements, that if there's a model that we can partner with the schools on to, let's say, optimize the way that you titrate funding for a specific research project, then we work with them on those things. And even to alumni relations. So we have a good understanding of where the data live across the university, And because we are broad, there's lots of vertical organizations. And I think one of our functions that this is what I enjoy about it. We're a connector across those vertical organizations and have a good idea of what can connect to what. So the stories that we can help tell are richer when you add different things together that typically would not be brought into the equation. So I think that's what's exciting about our role, is our visibility across the university. And then with human resources, we partner on a variety of projects, whether it's the simple, where's the growth happening and what types of roles, and what are we projecting in the future for needed roles, to looking at faculty to needs in the next 5 to 10 years, and where does the growth occur there.
That's awesome. I mean, one of the things that really struck me about what you said there was the well-being of students and tracking that through the kind of COVID years. It's fascinating. I haven't heard a lot of the research crossing from that domain into the employment domain, but you're in a perfect position to actually see those kind of lessons learned, the models, pull them back and forth between those two areas. But that's something I'd love to see HR tap into, that kind of student research and student outcomes, and pull that into the employment space a little more often. So I'm really excited for you to in that space. So Greg, I'm going to throw it back to you in a little bit of a two-part question here, just to kind of make sure we're staying on time. I'd love to hear a little bit about what drove this investment that's happening right now at GM, and then could you tell us a little bit about the roles on your team that have opened up in recent weeks?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say what drove the investment at GM is probably started with their sort of the new vision for the future, which GM's focus is on zero crashes, or I should say commitment, really. Their commitment is to zero crashes, zero emissions, and zero congestion, which is an incredibly aggressive vision, right? But one that definitely requires a strong talent strategy and effective talent acquisition and effective talent management. That's certainly going to be a key factor in all of that. So for years, GM has had a small but a strong people analytics group. In some cases, it was a little decentralized, but it was there, and it's still there today. And they were doing solid work, very specific work, right? Mastered and actually got involved with headcount planning, which is kind of impressive in some organizations. People analytics has a hard time even getting into that conversation. Attrition modeling, various things like that. And what they did was it added enough value that GM really saw the potential in the value of people analytics, and made the decision to expand the team and expand the PA capabilities. So at that point, and I believe that was maybe a year or two ago, I don't remember. I can still pull the I'm new card, so I don't know the exact specifics. But it was fairly recently. They decided to expand the team and bring on a director who could sort of shape the vision and a roadmap for the future for people analytics, which she has done. And I am fortunately a part of that. So
that's awesome to hear.
To answer your second question, sort of, segueing into that. I sit on one arm of the team, right? There's 3 arms. One is focused on, traditional people analytics, workforce analytics, and strategic workforce planning. My arm of the team is talent acquisition analytics, and another arm of the team is solutions. And the solutions, I won't go too much into that, although we're hiring for those positions as well. But the solutions team will be focused on obviously delivering solutioning, right? Tooling, helping develop our tech stack, as well as advanced statistical analysis and dashboard development. So there's that team. And then on my team, I'm hiring 3 folks to support talent acquisition analytics. Those 3 are a consultant, a data viz engineer, and a reporting specialist. And these roles sound exactly like what they are, right? So the consultant's role obviously is going to be a little bit of an analyst, but primarily a consultant. They need to build a strong relationship with our clients, our talent acquisition leaders. They need to have a thorough understanding of their business, of their problems, their pain points, their gaps, and where they want to be, what their strategy is, and understand how TA data and analytics can support and drive that. The data viz engineer is very much going to be a combo of a Power BI developer and a data engineer. We don't need somebody that can architect a database for us necessarily, although that'd be pretty cool. But we need someone that has an understanding of data architecture and modeling, obviously SQL and technical skills like that, because oftentimes you have to get scrappy when developing a dashboard, right? And then our reporting analyst will be supporting those two in their work, but also will have sort of a hyper focus on owning labor market intelligence.
That's awesome, Greg. Yeah, it's interesting, the kind of like small but mighty team for a while that then kind of has that upward curve to grow the team. I've seen that a couple of places where that long period of trust just goes such a long way then too, for the expansion of the team is incredible, but then also having that political trust, those connections that are kind of baked in already, it's a recipe for success. So I'm very excited for you and the team, as well as the structure of your team. And the engineer word caught me on the data viz. I think that's a really smart idea to kind of pull in that engineering talent too. And in that sort of hybrid role between visualization engineer and then that like leaning towards data engineer, I'm excited to see who you find for that role.
Yeah, sure. And if I could expand on that for 1 minute, the reason that actually came up with that was because prior to me coming on, the vision was to have a data viz analyst and a data engineer, right? And I wasn't sure we needed a full-fledged data engineer. We have IT; they're incredibly supportive and collaborative. Yeah. So I decided to combine them because I really wanted to find that Power BI developer or just data viz expert that had those technical skill sets, because oftentimes somebody will become very proficient in data viz software, but in an environment where the data is clean and prepped and staged and ready, and they can drag and drop. So they're an expert on all things Power BI or Tableau, but maybe not necessarily SQL or navigating a database or structuring data. So we kind of wanted to capture both of those things.
That's a great mix. That makes a lot of sense to kind of find the right person in the market too. So Amit, would love to come back to you over here. Would love to hear about the open role on your team, as well as the dynamic that's going on at Northwestern that kind of generated the space for this role.
Yeah, I think building a data culture kind of is foundational to where we are right now. It's strong in lots of areas, and I think in the HR space, this is the right moment. And so there's a new role that we're hiring for. It's an HR data analytics manager. The title is pretty bland, but the role and the excitement around an individual to fill that role is not. So I think the opportunity is, we've got a fertile, I'd say a base of not only data, but people and capital across the university to understand what's going on. I think we've in the HR space have really been focused on the reporting side of things. And that's good, it's needed, but the next level of how much and what's the driver, what are the what if scenarios? We need people, or we need an individual in this role to be able to advise and recommend versus report, to tell stories about what's happening. Maybe that's different in one school or one function that is not necessarily the same elsewhere. So there's unique elements across the university, and one size fits all might not be what the solution is. So someone who is steeped in understanding the nuance of the data, I think that's what's critical. And I think I am someone who would partner with this individual, and I'm excited that the HR function is going to be getting an individual whose expertise is based on looking deeper than the reporting to understand and problem solve with using the data more effectively to help drive even predictive sides of things versus reactive. Why did someone leave? Well, that's great, we can figure that out, but let's get to the perspective view with individuals who have the skills to build models and use the data to its capabilities.
That's great to hear. One of the things I've always, maybe I'm in a weird spot, I've always fantasized about kind of working with that university setting, because you get access to those researchers in those schools that are actually really fascinated with this topic too. So maybe for this role, is there a chance they'll get to work with people from Kellogg or other researchers that are in this management organizational space? Yeah,
so I think that's going to be a natural progression, we hope. We have researchers that are focusing on, teams and collaboration, and you can imagine the internal research that could happen of how does our organization collaborate effectively or less effectively, or what will it take to organize a team based on whether it's communications or whether it's on product or so forth. I'm certain that this individual could learn a lot from faculty ranging from anthropology to business, and even in medicine, of how do you communicate to people in different ways. So I think it's the opportunity is definitely out in front, and I think it will come with time of where those linkages occur.
That's awesome. I know you got Keith Kellerson's bingo card for anthropology. I saw that pop up in the chat. And of course, I would be remiss to not say this person's going to get to hopefully work with Deborah and Michelle in the TALREOS organization. I mean, that's a phenomenal asset for that role too. So let me throw one back to Greg here. Greg, if you were thinking about these roles, and it doesn't have to be for all three, but I'd love to hear something from your perspective that would help someone that comes into that role be successful at GM. I do maybe the things that might be a little unique you're looking for. Like, we're always looking for intelligent people. We're always looking for kind people.
Sure,
but
sure.
what kind of stands out maybe that you could share with us today?
So I think one is that Amit just spoke to is the sort of the ability to tell a story, to interpret and generate meaningful insights from data, and to put a story together about it. And to me, storytelling isn't so much about it's like anthropology. I think somebody threw in there, right? In that chat. It's not just coming up with a fictional story that sounds good and this data pieces together, right? It's definitely, and I'm sure this resonates as well with everybody else. It's definitely just sort of discovering what the underlying story is in the data, and really what the truth of things are, and things that people can take actions on. So that's a unique skill set, and we're definitely looking for somebody that has that, particularly for the consultant position in data viz engineer. But honestly, all of them, that'd be powerful. From a technical standpoint, I wouldn't say these are necessarily unique. These are pretty hand in hand with these types of roles. But like I said, with the data viz engineer, definitely want something with Power BI expertise or power user, as well as sort of that back end skill set with SQL, data modeling, etc. And a plus would be also understanding Python and R, Workday reporting as well, since that's the system we use. And data automation, or not data automation, just automation in general, right? Being able to automate data flows, automate processes. I think having those skill sets will set someone above and beyond for this role. And a second one that I think is, again, probably not unique to these types of teams, but something that we are particularly focused on, given our vision and mission for the future, is labor market intelligence, right? So we need somebody that has deep experience researching and diving into labor market data, either from the government or from vendor sources, or from getting scrappy and doing the research themselves, original research on the labor market. Whatever it is, somebody that understands labor market trends, data, and how to interpret it, and can quickly understand the nature of an industry, its competitors, sort of the footprint of an industry, and where the talent is at, right? Somebody that can yield insights from that, and then clearly articulate why those insights are meaningful.
That's great to hear. And Greg, just to stick with you for a minute, if somebody knocked it out of the park in this job, so looking forward a year from now, you've got your three perfect people in the role. What would that look like for you? Like, wow, this person really knocked it out of the park. They've succeeded at GM.
So, I mean, I'm hiring for multiple roles, so I kind of speak as a whole.
Yeah.
And so the first thing I'll say is that on the maturity curve of people analytics, I think we have a lot of foundational things to set up, right? So I'd say in this year, all three of the folks on my team, and probably on the other team as well, right off the bat, they need to be able to quickly assess the needs of talent acquisition leaders, identify quick wins, early on that, I mean, all the little things like who's creating manual spreadsheets, automate things, right? That's step one, just to give some time back to people and be more efficient. And then from there, for the rest of the year, if they're able to deliver, as a team, and this is something that I'll certainly be working with the team on. So either leading or supporting delivery of, critical dashboards, planning and diagnostic tools, Operational reporting, right? There's some places where operational reporting just doesn't exist, and it's can be really harmful to the business, right? So being able to stand these up in a cadenced way, and then I'd say the third thing is moving past all of that and starting to deliver actual insights and takeaways from our data. So being able to interpret that data and tell the story with it. And this is either talent insights about our current talent, about our candidates in our pipeline, and about the labor market, right? So we really have a lot that we need to understand about the labor market for where GM wants to go. And we really need to start getting sort of putting ourselves out there and branding our team as the team that can deliver those labor market insights. And I think it would be a huge success if we were able to do that. And actually, the last thing is, and it's something Amit just spoke to, we really need to make sure that we've established an advisory relationship with our talent acquisition leaders, not a reporting relationship. So what I would consider not a success, not knocking it out of the park, is if at the end of the year, great, we've delivered a bunch of operational reports and dashboards, everyone's using them, cool. And then they come to us every day for ad hoc stuff. That is not a win, right? So I think part of that's a win, but there's more. So where we need to do is take it beyond that and become proactive, become advisors to the business, and be delivering, kind of get that operational reporting out of the way so we can deliver insights.
I love hearing that. Like, what is not a win? That'd be something nice to see on job postings more often. Like, what should you not be doing in this job?
Right. That's a fair
I'd like
point.
to see that. So, Amit, coming back over to you, I would love to hear what would help someone be successful in this role at Northwestern.
I think it goes without saying the technical knowledge and experience is vital. But I think couple that with, if you don't have the higher ed background, being curious about what makes it tick and what some of the context behind what analyses you will be doing. Why should someone care? Being interested to see what ultimate decisions are being connected with the different analyses that are being done versus just producing stuff without understanding the so what and what happened and what can we do better next time. So I think the coupling of technical background, and then the other aspect is the ability to partner across as I mentioned before, very different groups across the university, whether it's our finance operations side, which might require one way to communicate and different needs to a department or a school that maybe has a further way to go to understand, and they might not be able to articulate what they need. So there might be some probing that would be required in that level of partnership. So being able to be a communicator and someone who can facilitate conversation to really understand what's needed versus assuming and potentially forcing an end product that might not be what was required. So I think listening, curiosity, willing to take a step back and say, what's the problem? What's the context that can help me do what I'm supposed to be doing? I think that's going to be a major factor.
Thank you. And this will be our kind of final question here, but I would love to hear a year from now when somebody knocked it out of the park, what's something that they accomplished or what's something you'd like to see from them?
I think the regular pull. So people know who you are and knows the function and maybe refers to something that you did early on as kind of a milestone for the organization. So something, remember that deep analysis, we're going to continue doing it and we're going to tweak it year over year because we're on the same page now. So it becomes part of the rhythm versus a one-off. And it's something that people are depending on versus it's just produced to be produced. So I think dependency and developing the need and changing that need or responding to the changing needs is probably the other side of it.
That's a good sign. So please, everyone, join me in thanking our two panelists today. It was wonderful to hear from you both. I hope you get a tremendous amount of candidates and all the best people come your way, and we get to hear about who got hired into these roles. And before we throw too many thank yous in the chat, there is a link there to our survey. Please take a look at the survey. Let us know what worked well today, what didn't. And thank you. I see we've got the next one coming up with Dave Lee and Rachel Cedarberg. Should be a really fun one too. But again, panelists, Greg and Amit, thank you so much today. This was a ton of fun to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Farewell, everybody.